All right, everyone, we're live. Welcome to Table Talk, where we talk all things tabletop. I am your host, The Bella Gamer, and I'm here with my co-host, Glue Boy.
Hello, it's me.
And I have a feeling we're gonna have a lot of people jumping into the chat today, so
Certainly hope so.
It's gonna be a fun one. And my green screen, yay! And it's working, and I have no longer the shadow.
And now you have Hell Knights standing behind you. Watch out, they might come for you.
Oh no.
They're gonna grab you.
We did just finish this week the Hell Knights for all the archetypes.
Yeah.
Which I have some stories about that, but as always, let's talk about what we normally do. How's everything been going there, good boy?
I'm in a state of being today that I can only describe as Adderall personified.
So
yeah, very. I took my meds a little later than I normally do. Had a very strange Dead by Daylight game where like things just weren't processing very well. Because I took it and then played Dead by Daylight, so as it was like kicking in. And then I just started like doing stuff. I was like, ooh, I'll clean all this, I'll organize that. My Warhammer shelf is now like actually organized. And like I can pick out model and like unit coherency a lot better. I got 2 shelves for each army, one of painted, one unpainted. I have like minis in front of me that I was painting a little bit ago. I'm just like gonna actually try to make some progress on this. I'm feeling motivated. I'm feeling ready. All I gotta do is work on a big script today after this.
You know what? You do sound jacked up on Adderall right
I'm feeling good. I also don't know if I took more than I normally do. Because like I was like, that's weird. I feel like I took it, but I feel like shit. I have no memory of me doing it. So I'm like, did I take 2 today and just fully muscle memory, like not process that I did it this morning? Or am I just in a weird mood? I'll take either because like I'm so productive.
Fair. I've had a productive day myself. I've called on estimate because we have a wasp nest over our deck at the moment. And that's where we're planning on doing our barbecue. So it's like,
That is important to get them
out. Let's call Orkin and see what they'll say. And it's like $300 to remove a wasp nest, and it's like, or I could battle them myself.
You know, one of the did you already do it, or do you still need to do that?
I still need to do it. So
if you want a little hack, I found this recently. All you gotta do, depending on how big it is, obviously, you get a container that can fit the entirety of the wasp nest and make like almost an airtight seal around it, like a cup or something. You fill the bottom with just fucking gasoline, and then you shove it onto the nest.
I've seen the videos. I've seen it. I would if I could. I thought about that, but it's jammed up in a corner.
Damn.
Over something, so I can't really do that. So I'm gonna have to get the spray that has like the 10 foot reach, and try to spray him down and hope I don't get stung too much.
Spray it down, then immediately shut the door, kind of deal.
Well, the problem is it's right over the door, so
I
may have to run around the house to the side door, depending.
That sounds perilous. I mean, it is an important thing to deal with because I would rather not have wasps hanging out, especially because they are like carnivorous. They do like meats.
Yeah. So, looked at that, and then also we're gonna get our water heater replaced tomorrow, hopefully. That's also expensive. That's gonna be pretty close to like $2,600. So, yeah, rough stuff. Would have been a little cheaper, but I think the guy who was working on this house before was doing some DIY stuff. Well, no, the water heater itself is like $500 or something like that. But to get someone to come out with the right permits and experience, it's electricity and plumbing.
Yeah, it's a mix of both.
Because it's an electric water heater.
I also would not be surprised if it was installed weird or wrong, knowing your house and the track record you've been telling.
Yeah, well, also in our closet, funny enough, where the water heater is found is in our bedroom closet.
Oh,
Well, it's like blocked off in a section of the wall,
okay, fair, I guess.
but
Still a weird place to put it.
the support holding like the shelf and the bar for like hanging clothes on, like the middle support just ripped out of the wall for no reason when we put some empty like moving containers in there. So that's also a problem.
Already hanging on by a thread and just that little change of weight.
Yeah, it is right on the other side of our shower bathroom. So yeah, I mean, it's very specialty work working with water heaters, unfortunately.
It is weird. It's I've only seen other people work on them, and it always seems like a lot of fucking work. I'm like, I'm very glad I didn't go into plumbing.
You know what, Derek? We'll talk about that in a little bit because I have some thoughts on that as well, from what I've heard. But we're gonna let some more people jump in here first before we really get into the meat of today's episode. Let's see here. Yeah, I would never give it up either. I'm owning it. Like, I'm sanding the deck right now. There's nothing more tedious than sanding. There's some stuff that's harder, and there's stuff like building the shelf for our air conditioner and taking that window out. That was a big project. But sanding just sucks because you just sit there and the sander does everything, but it doesn't do it very quickly unless you have like a really high grade sander.
You need some like nice one that almost glides.
Well, it glides pretty fine, but it's just how quickly it sands it down is a different story. And we have just a little hand sander, and it takes a long time. It took me 4 hours to do the rails that lead up to the deck itself. So, but I also have never done housework before, so a lot of it is also just me learning how to do housework, which has been a part of the process itself. So,
yeah,
I don't know.
It's that fun thing of I've never had to fix this before. Oh god, let me figure it out.
Yeah. But it's all worth it because we'll have content for y'all coming up as we're going to have the we're gonna have the crew here in a couple weeks, actually, a little less than 2 weeks from today. Everyone will be here, and we'll have some fun group content and some other kinds of content on the channel. I'm super excited about all that. Plus,
I'm excited to see what is like for in store almost. See what we do.
Also, it's just gonna be fun. We're gonna like go play Nerf tag and all kinds of stuff like that. So it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm excited because you keep saying this place like you're living as some dope shit. Everything is like, oh, what the fuck? What do you guys have that and I don't? I had cool stuff to do in my town.
Right. The only thing that sucks is not everyone has a passport to cross the border to Canada.
Yeah.
Run some network cable. That'll sound miserable. The guy who had to install our internet had a time because he had to go under the house, and it's not fun down there. I had to go under the house when we installed our washer dryer. So, but yeah, so we got that. Also, yesterday I was in a fun collab with some people, some other content creators for Pathfinder. I don't want to give out too much information yet, just because if things fall through, I don't want it to look bad for anyone involved. So, it hopefully will be coming out sometime next month, but we'll have to see. It's gonna be fun. I will say it's not gonna be anything like huge. It's not like I'm getting together with like Nonat or Ronald or anything like that. But some other pretty dedicated content creators in the area. we have some stuff coming out for you guys starting next month, which is gonna be really cool.
Yeah, I'm curious to see it, like, when it comes out. I'm wondering. You explained the premise of the video to me before we started, so I'm just curious to see it in play. I think it'd be interesting content.
I'll say I killed it.
I imagine. And it was like when you told the premise, I was like, oh yeah, I imagine there's very good reason you got invited. That seems like your strong suit right there.
It is my strong suit. So, but also, Rage of Elements is coming out this month. There's already been some teaser things that have been showing up on YouTube. How It's Played did a 5-minute teaser of fire-related items, some of the new spells, and magic items related to fire specifically. So that's going to be really cool. And as well, Roll for Combat did a 2-hour interview with one of the major authors for the book as well.
Ooh.
So it's coming out. Nothing. I don't think there's going to be any major reviews until halfway through the month, since the book releases early August, and they tend to do everything about 2 weeks in advance, give or take. So
that makes sense.
And because my channel is not above 10K yet, I'm still relatively low on the list to get stuff. So talk about Earth of Plane stuff, but still good stuff. Still waiting for my Battle Zoo books. I've always wanted to get the Battle Zoo stuff. It looks really interesting. And you know what? Well, actually, do you have anything, Alex, that's been going on?
I mean, not really. Just I made a video today on the Tyranid hive fleets, or the sub-factions for the Tyranid faction. A video purely made because my subs have been Googling Tyranid-related things, and I can see that in my research tab. And also, it's extra funny kind of video because sub-factions aren't a thing anymore in Warhammer, 10th edition. We'll see. I imagine that they're going to drop some detachments that are going to follow what the sub-factions would be. I have a feeling that's just what's going to happen down the line when they get their own books. But currently the video is kind of just here's some fun lore tidbits and maybe a paint scheme you might like. And I gotta say, there's some very cool hive fleets, like the one that as they're fighting you, they're building up a physiological profile of your species, so they can hand craft a poison that'll instantly kill your species.
Yeah.
It's that's terrifying and so cool. Yeah, I think it's a fun video, so give that a watch.
It's been doing really well today.
I'm happy. I should check it, because normally my videos, when they pop off around TableTalk time.
And you've been growing pretty good too recently. You're already past the 1.5K, and you hit 1K, 2 months ago, 3 months ago?
Something like that.
Crazy.
I think 2 or 3 months, because I've only gotten a single YouTube paycheck since I got monetized.
Yeah. So, pretty impressive. We are close. We are rapidly approaching 3K here, which I'm very excited for. Hopefully we can rush to 5K, but we'll have to see. Rage of Elements stuff probably will help a lot. Also, I'm super happy that everyone liked my Mistform Alchemist character combo. Character combos will be a common short on the channel starting from last week, so every Saturday there'll be a new character combo short, minute long, interesting interaction in the game. I don't like the thumbnail. And unfortunately, to get the right thumbnail, you have to edit the video, and then you have to upload it to Google Drive or something, and then download it on your phone, and then upload it through your phone to YouTube Shorts. So, I mean, and then you can pick the thumbnail.
Yeah, at the very least, it's not the most appealing thumbnail if somebody's browsing your channel, but if people are just kind of scrolling through TableTalk shorts, it won't really matter. But that's a super annoying process to do shorts.
I don't know why YouTube is like this. It's why can't I not just upload the short on the computer and choose the thumbnail. Why can't I choose a thumbnail through the computer? I don't understand. But
YouTube is a platform of ideas that they think would be cool, but then with none of the actual, like, you know, niceties or ease of access of the platforms they stole the idea from. Looking at you, YouTube live streaming.
yeah, for sure. But hey, that's why we do it on both. Even though technically that's not even legal anymore, but who cares?
They're not gonna catch on.
Yeah, who knows? And apparently Keenan Casey was saying, don't know about the scoop with Twitch today, but it's bogging with lots of latency, so they can barely make their own platform work. I'm not too afraid of them coming after a 10 viewer stream.
Yeah, if you were like pulling in XQC numbers, then they'd have something to say.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, so someone mentioned, I think it's Derek Pope. Yes, there's been a lot of pretty rampant changes. Yeah, for sure. I just think it's dumb. The comment was more just how dumb it was if you wanted to do it from a more straightforward route.
There shouldn't be a fix in place. Like, if you're building in what YouTube is doing, really investing heavily in shorts on the creator side, like telling creators, hey, you should just start doing shorts, like in certain like meetings and stuff. They should have it easier to do. There shouldn't have to be a third-party tool, but it's good that someone made that. It's the same thing of Truffle TV, the extension that Ludwig and his team made that turns YouTube into more like Twitch on the live streaming side. And I've used the extension. It's good. It works really well.
Yeah, just silly.
It's just goofy.
Because it's like I want to make a really nice edited short. So, you know, I'm going to go on to Premiere. I'm going to gussy it up rather than using the kind of awkward YouTube short maker.
Their editing tool fucking sucks. I hate it so much.
Plus, my short did really well. A lot of people really seem to have enjoyed it, so
I'm glad that idea worked, because I think it's a really good idea for short form content, is like highlighting fun rules exchanges, purely based on how many times on Twitter I see a meme that is like a little comic based around the same concept. Like, here's how you can use this ability in Pathfinder in really goofy, fun ways.
Yeah, and there's a lot. I have a really fun one. Sneak peek at this one. The Shadowmancer. You're not going to believe what class I'm going to be using as the primary like catalyst for the short build idea.
Fighter.
Do I not share a path builder character sheet over a forum, like the image of it, or are you talking like the URL? Because you can get the URL.
Yeah, the URL I think should work. Maybe
it does.
Okay, good. Then the other case is, yeah, you can print it out in a pure text format, and anyone who knows what the ability names are will be able to look at it. If you have the link, someone can import it into their path builder.
Or screen capture and like print screen and do that as well.
Yeah, it depends. If they want the full path builder thing, but just with another character sheet, yeah, you can just import it and then export it to whatever path builder you want it to end up in.
Anyway, so what Derek Pope was mentioning earlier about the changes, you know what? For the most part, I'm generally okay with a lot of them, but for some of them, I really just question why some of these changes were made / needed. So there's a link here I'm getting off of Phoebe Bain, Goblin VTuber on Twitter, and so here's the list, right? Alignment has been removed. We all know this. We've all talked about this. Followers of some deities can commit to being either holy or unholy for the purpose of benefiting from holy or unholy effects. So that's cool. I'm completely okay with that.
That's solid. I don't see that it changes very much. Just kind of reflavors some stuff. Maybe get some more openings for other things. Yeah, cool. I like that change.
But I will say as well, I do agree with the people who like the alignment chart and use it as guidelines for making characters, because I think it's an interesting way to look at character design by kind of like, all right, I want to make a character who is this alignment. What kind of actions would they say or do or take or whatever? If you like doing that, you can still use the old material. It still works just as fine. Just replace holy and unholy with good and evil. And for chaotic and lawful, I mean, I don't know. It's pretty easy to determine whether a character is lawful or not.
Yeah, pretty easy. It's all that, and we've talked about this when we did when we were going through some of the changes. I, as someone who has never done that, and personally is not a big fan of trying to have things on an alignment scale, I am really unbothered by the change because my experience isn't changing at all. I at least understand that concept for it, but on the other hand, I think it's a good change for those players who are really obsessed with alignment to the point where it's a character detriment in roleplay. I hope that might solve some things, but who knows. The people who try to play like chaotic stupid or really annoying lawful good is more what I mean.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing, is I think people looked at alignment as some kind of restriction system.
Yeah, that's
like your character can't. I don't like. Yeah, and that's not what alignment was meant to be ever. You know, it was more because like if you ever play any of the games, your character sits on the alignment chart, but every time you make a choice that is like one alignment or another, you move like a little bit of distance towards a direction on the chart.
Yeah, it's a sliding scale. It's not a static character creator choice.
And that's why I liked alignment as an overall like character creation tool, because it's an interesting concept of like what is the difference between a lawful good and a lawful neutral character, right?
Yeah.
Exploring that difference, I think it definitely makes it very interesting and a discussion worth having. Removing it doesn't do anything because other games don't have alignment charts and work just as fine anyway. So, you know.
Exactly. It's a thing. I feel like other games, especially like D&D 5e, I kind of just leave it blank because it never comes up. I don't think about it. For Pathfinder, you kind of have to because, you know, there's alignment damage is a thing. So instead it became a tool of, I just finished my character. I got to fill this box. Like, let me go through and figure out what alignment they align with currently. And like figure that out after I've done every other step of character creation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, whatever.
I completely agree. Yeah, I agree with your perspective on it. I don't like the people misrepresenting it as you would for any, you know, tool that someone's misrepresenting.
Yeah.
But yeah, for that perspective of like creating a cool stipulation for a character as like a guideline, I think it's a good use of it. Though I'm not mourning the loss in any way.
No, I mean, like I said, removing it does nothing because bad characters still do bad things, good characters still do good things. If anything, it just removes some cheese of like, I cast Divine Lance on this dude because if he's evil, he'll take damage, and then we know we got him. And that's like not how evil works. Lawful evil characters are still law-abiding citizens. You know, they just are assholes.
Yeah, they just suck.
Which isn't illegal, as much as some people would like for it to be. So, you know,
it's not illegal to be evil. Yeah.
I've tried sharing it via link in YouTube's comments section, but the YouTubers I sent it to had compatibility issues and couldn't open it. Interesting. I don't know about sending it over YouTube comments. I don't know. That's just something you're gonna have to fiddle with. I think it sounds like a fiddly thing where you just gotta find the right answer.
I haven't had any problems importing sheets. I don't know what the problem for that would be.
Dev Phoenix says those people will not be stopped if they want to be annoying. They'll just find another way. They just have one less excuse, and of course they still have. That's what my character would do. Yeah, and exactly, like nothing changes from the loss of alignment. No. So you know, to be there or not to be there, I don't think changed anything. Only classes that were ever restricted were Paladin, Druid, Cavalier types. Having these classes pick up creeds causes it more elegant. I agree. I actually think that this is an interesting part where creeds and edicts actually circumvent alignments. Because if you do everything to your creed, good or evil, I think that's an interesting exploration, you know? If a character is protecting the weak by murdering terrible rich people, is that breaking their creed of not committing, you know, good or evil acts? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I'm really excited to see more details on it, because I agree. I think it's going to be a really fun system that I'm going to mesh with a lot more. I think having a list of tenets that you have to like follow in actions that you like can't follow and like can't do is way more interesting. It's the thing I really like about like cleric stuff, is having these are the core tenets of your god, and here's the anathema actions that you just cannot do. I think it leads to some good charactership.
Yeah. So, I do think that's interesting, and that kind of like breaks away the concepts of good and evil in a way that I feel is more organic to, because that's the thing, right? Is people just can't agree on what is actually good or evil in the end. There's some acts that some people will forgive while others cannot. So
it turns it more into adapting those rule-wise into roleplay situations and role-playing in your character rather than having a tag. I think is a big difference. It's going to improve just playing your character, who they are, what they believe, and then the alignment system would for the vast majority of people. So that change, I am so fucking excited for. I just want to read it. I don't even know if I'll have a character that messes with that system. I just want to know what's up.
Yeah. Let's see here. Ag Silver says the original purpose of Lima is to reign in Murder Hobo unless you were playing an evil game. I mean, that's just a respect versus disrespect thing between players and GM. Maybe that was how that was solved before, to try to like code in a way so players couldn't cheese around it, but they would just do it anyway. I also dislike the concept of an evil game. I think it's fun at times to be like, ooh, we're gonna play some like comically evil characters, because it's just kind of a fun role play. I get that, and I think that's fun. But I feel like there's a lot of people who want to play evil campaigns to do some just really sick, disgusting things that they couldn't do in normal games.
I think it's the thing of, if you as a DM broach your players with, hey guys, I have a really cool idea for like a short, like maybe 15-20 session game where we're the bad guys. What do y'all think? And everyone's like, oh, hell yeah, that sounds fun. Like that, I think, can lend to a very positive game if everyone's cool, everyone's on board. You know that there's not just a weird person at the table who's going to take things too far, like that kind of thing. But if you have a player that's really like, hey DM, we should do an evil campaign. Hey DM, evil campaign, can we do that today? Like then that's like, that's why are you so into that? Why do you want to do that so bad? Yeah, I think it could be interesting to play like the bad guys of another tabletop campaign. That'd be a really dope roleplay idea if you know everyone at the table's cool.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing is, right, like, there are some actions that players should never take in any medium.
Yes.
Because they are abhorrent for a reason. You know what I mean? If you're playing like silly alien game where your whole thing is going and abducting people or making their heads explode, it's fun, it's silly, and it's like video game violence. It's not anything, even though they're good people, quote unquote. It's fine. But if you're doing some darker subjects, getting into torture or even worse elements, that's like obliging a dark factor of people's personalities that just does not need to be a thing that people should be role-playing. It should be something that they should be opposing, or, you know, for the purposes of making a narrative, not necessarily like getting to... The whole point of role-playing is to like live out fantasies. If that's your fantasy that you want to live out, there's problems. So
yeah, it's the reason why if my litmus test is how excited are people for the evil campaign. If someone's like way too excited about it, it's like maybe we shouldn't. If everyone's just like, oh, that'd be a fun little detour, yeah, let's do it. Yeah, I'll play like a dark like sorcerer or like a necromancer lore. That'd be kind of fun. I always want to do a lich like style character, but it's never fit the games because kind of evil.
Let's see here. It looks like everyone else is just talking about like various requirements for certain classes of being good or evil. We can get past the alignment thing now. I think we've talked about it enough. Next up,
Yeah.
attribute modifiers are replacing ability scores. Another non-change. It just makes things simpler.
Yeah, it gets rid of the 2 numbers and gives you 1 number to deal with.
The only people that this particularly upsets are people who love rolling stats. And I don't like random stat generation. I feel like all it does is create inequality in groups.
I like how Pathfinder currently does it with like having the standard stats with all the bonuses like adding to it by character creation rather than like rolling for it. It feels a lot better.
Because like we were playing Solasta and you could just roll your stats infinitely, and it's just like, so you just kept rolling until you got stats that you liked.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's another pretty much non-loss. Whether you like it or not, to each their own. You can enjoy it where you're not. I just don't like random stat generation, as I feel all it does is create inequalities in character builds that in the end don't mean anything anyway, but sometimes they do. And sometimes there's always that question of like, did this person cheat on the rolls? I don't know. Getting 3 18s is a little sus, but
yeah, I think if you're gonna do random stat generation, I mean, if you really want to run it, like running it in person or at least having it be an open dice roll that everyone can see is the way to go. But then like the only time I personally am ever like, hell yeah, random stat generation is a fun style of character creation where you roll random stats, but you like write down which skill each is like tied to, and then you roll them like down the line. And essentially you're geared out with a stat block and you have to figure out what classes and stuff would benefit that stat line the best. To like fully randomize your character creator, because like that might come with some really good ideas. Like,
yeah.
oh, okay, I have this character with like a 8. Oh, I rolled an 8 because it happened to me. I rolled in like an 18 intelligence and a 5 wisdom. And I was like, oh, interesting. Okay. So it lent to a really fun like wizard character. Stuff like that. It can be a really cool character creator like style thing, but I much prefer Pathfinder's system that it currently has, and that is yet another change they're imposing. I will not mourn.
Yeah, fair. Let's see. Spells no longer will say verbal and somatic. They will just say concentration and manipulation, which is interesting actually, because. And this is also for item activations as well. I don't know how they're going to do, because verbal, like the whole point of spellcasting, one of the annoyances I find with spellcasting is just a lot of spells are verbal that you would want to use subtly.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they're removing that aspect, which I think would be interesting.
I'm curious how that'd work, because my conceal meta magic for the wizard I'm currently playing, I get around the verbal. Like,
yeah, and that's the point of it. That's right. It's powerful. Yeah. You can only use it like once per day too.
Is it once per day?
Yeah, I believe so.
Oh shit.
So it's good. Honestly, I've always just been a big fan of spells have visual effects, whether it's like you're shooting a bolt or you're like generating some kind of aura. So like if they can't see you, they don't know you're using a spell necessarily, unless you're shooting like a fireball or something like that. I like that.
Even conceal spell says that. It's like they might not see you cast it, but they'll see a fucking laser beam come from your position.
Right.
It's still very evident a spell went off. The other question, unless it's like debunked in there, maybe they're just making it so the verbal component is part of the manipulate tag, which is kind of funny if like you have a spell that's pure verbal and non-somatic. So then, like, a fighter character is like, he's talking, and it just smacks you in the face.
Well, it's concentration, and the fighter actually can hit you for doing concentration if they pick up a feat for it.
You just see a nerd start muttering, so you swing.
You're just like, not today! Bang!
That's a smart fighter, to be honest. That's
True.
The right call in that situation.
So interesting. I don't know. That's I'm curious to see where that goes. I think it's fine, because honestly, all verbal and somatic meant was concentration and manipulate. So just
Yeah,
cutting out the middleman there only makes sense.
it just makes it easier for people trying to figure out Pathfinder casting, which I think is a little too weird to explain and is explained a little meh. I'm getting a handle on it by sheer exposure, but wrapping my head around like picking a spell for each spell slot's still really weird.
Vantian spellcasting is a little off. I agree.
It feels weird. I see the reason for it. I understand what's beneficial about it. It feels weird.
It feels inorganic is the
Yeah,
problem.
it
Is
feels like it goes against any game ever that
how
I've
do you
played.
how do you like quantify magical energy that is like so specific? They have a reason for it. Is you make mental constructs in your brain that you can then utilize later. And
Yeah.
like while I get that for sure, players are just not great at planning ahead, so they're just going to take general spells that are going to work in more situations and then not use niche spells, which makes niche spells bad. But that's why in our games I allow wizards, witches, and like to actually spend 10 minutes to replace their spell without taking the theorem for it, because at the very least, if you have a spell for the right situation but not the right time, 10 minutes. Can't do it in combat, sure, but outside of combat you get that utility, which I think is good.
Yeah. It flows a little better than like, because a lot of times I feel like you're in that situation where, yeah, like you have 10 minutes because you're kind of in that nebulous roleplay time zone. It's like, yeah, I mean, we could, rest for the day and do that. It's just going to kind of cut through the flow of the game. So it doesn't feel like it changes a lot.
Dialogue Reject, most games don't use Vantian spellcasting. Most games actually have more of a free flow style. It's been around forever, but most games don't use it. I don't know what you're talking about.
If it has been around for a while, I mean, my statement's still true, at least from my own experience. I have never played a game with this style of spellcasting. I say I've played a good amount of like games, mainly video games though, and a lot of times you just have a mana bar, and that's what you kind of work around. I've never had to slot spells like that. If it's an old hat tabletop thing, then that's probably why I haven't seen it. Because I haven't played a super amount of tabletop games except for relation with this channel.
I played a ton, and D&D and Pathfinder are the only games that have ever used it. So, granted, a lot of other games don't use as much magic.
That's also fair.
So it's more reasonable. I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad system, but I feel like it's not casual friendly. And when you have a lot of people who want to play spellcasters, it's just like play a sorcerer or don't play a spellcaster.
It's something to wrap my head around, and it's something I'm not a fan of because I'm not a big plan ahead guy. I just kind of like having spells and casting them. And in the moment, I like the thing of, oh shit, I have a thing for this, oh my god, instead of like, yes, with my big logic brain, I can figure out we're going to have this spell and this spell. I just prefer the moment of like, oh shit, spontaneous.
It's easier to track, in your opinion, mana bars or spell slots? Genuinely an interesting question.
Mana bars, because I've played more video games than I have tabletop games.
But in a TTRPG sense.
I think if it's just like a standard, like each spell costs a certain amount of like mana points, and you have a cap of mana points, maybe that's how that could transfer.
I like slots better, but I like D&D 5e's version, where
I do agree.
You just know how many spells of certain levels you can cast, and you can heighten up to that, but obviously there's the high level spells that you would just use at that level, and you just mark off when you're done. I think that is actually easier from a general sense.
I hate having to slot in specifically heightened versions of lower spells. I don't like that. I really like how 5e kind of just implies, yeah, you're a wizard. You know how to cast the spell. You've mastered it. So you know inherently how to make it stronger.
Mm-hmm.
I prefer that system as well. I think 5e, the one genuine piece of like compliment I will give it is I like 5e spellcasting more than Pathfinder spellcasting, but the Pathfinder spells are better.
Agreed. Yeah. In general, I just, you know, I, for mana points, right? Whenever I think about mana points, or whatever, however you want to do it, the problem I come is then when you statify it, that means it can be adjusted. And so it's like, are you getting items, or are you leveling up that are giving you more points? And then players are just going to start gaming the heck out of how many mana points they have to cast more spells. And like, well, you can kind of do that with spell slots. It's a lot easier to manage, I feel like. So
I would hope that Mage, a game called Mage, had the best casting system. I would hope that. Yeah, I also, I strongly feel that. I'm playing both a Pathfinder and a 5e game. Just the process of learning spells, casting them, I feel is a lot better than in 5e. I wish I just had the 5e spellcasting mechanics with the Pathfinder 2nd edition spells, because spells are so much fucking cooler in 2nd edition.
Yeah, and in Dead Phoenix, actually, that brings up an interesting point as well, is spontaneous spellcasters like sorcerers are hard to differentiate, like how different they are than wizards, because what they get in D&D is meta magic, right? But it makes less sense that someone who just does magic has a better understanding of how to manipulate it than someone who studies it like religiously. So
yeah, I think how the classes interact with some magic is a bit weird still in 5e and not super well defined. I like the mechanics behind it, but yeah, some of the actual classes with like their flavor of spellcasting, some of them just feel weird. It's like, that feels like it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Legitimately, what I would do is keep wizards kind of like how they normally do in 5e, and then make sorcerers or similar, like kind of spontaneous casters, have more spells but at lower spell levels.
That makes
like,
sense.
Twice as many like lower level spells, but they can only get up to like 6th level spell casting. Because there is something to be said, even though you might not have the same punching power as a wizard, your free ability to just use magic all the time will give you, like, it was one of the things I talked about the Kineticist playtest, where it's just like free flight forever at level 8 is really, really strong, or a lot of their other free abilities just use infinite spells that they have access to, is actually really strong in comparison to normal spellcasting.
Circumventing the necessity of costing a resource is fucking insane.
Yeah, so that's how I would do it, because then it would make it feel like a sorcerer is a sorcerer. They just innately have a ton of magic that they can use, you know?
Yeah, and then like some meta magic stuff could take it, so like when you get higher, you can still maybe keep some damage output, like, you know, with how you can modify your spells, but you just can't cast,
even
like,
even if it just let
spells.
them heighten lower level spells up to high level spell slots, just they can't use high level spells, because a higher level spell, at least in Pathfinder, actually does more damage than a heightened version of the lower level spell up to that point. So that's how I would do it, and I think that would be the better way for sure. Man, everyone's just jumping in chat. Just cast strike, it's always the occasion for it. Fair.
True.
Let's see. Well, Dungeons and Dragons doesn't even have the best dragons, and you often don't play in the dungeon. Also true.
Yeah, it is like unfair and false marketing, you know? They kind of lied. I don't think I've ever found a dragon in a dungeon.
Yeah, half and quarter casters in D&D are kind of terrible.
They are.
Because the spells are not just designed to flow well with them, is the problem.
Yeah, it's the decision of, do I smack or do I cast? And, it's like,
And that's why Paladin
is gonna be smacking.
Yeah, Paladin is the best exception, because it just combines smack with spell. So
yeah, you just have a resource like, oh, I can use my spell slot in a shitty way that does very little in this moment, or I could jump a fuck ton of damage into the enemy. I wonder which one I'm gonna pick.
Now we're gonna start getting to the parts that I find are more, why even bother changing this, because it's just gonna be more confusing. So Methods are being renamed to elemental scamps. Okay, I guess.
Yeah. All right.
Method. It's not like D&D owns the term method, so you know, I would have even preferred sprite or something. Elemental sprites. Scamps is just a weird one, but okay.
What a little scamp.
What a little scamp.
Yeah.
The quintessivore.
Yeah, there's not a lot of like oomph with that.
I don't know. So that's where we're in. Genies, in the design of them, are being completely changed. Some of this I like to an extent, but so they're changing them. Air is going to be called Jathoons. Earth is going to be Giblis or Yabilis. It's probably Yabilis. It's probably Yathum and Yabilis because genies are Middle Eastern, which uses J as like a ha or ya sound. Ifrits a fire, so Ifrits are staying as Ifrits, I guess. And Fedayans or Fedahans for water. The Ifrit Geniekin are now known as Nari. So now, if you're playing, I guess they're not being lumped into the Nephilim, so they're going to be called the Nari.
Yeah, just mixing into not the same thing, I guess. That's interesting.
That one is fine. I'm generally fine. I don't know why because like Sylph. I mean, I guess they're just keeping everything with like Middle Eastern tone. Because Sylph is not like a Middle Eastern word. It's like
it's a European one.
European word.
Yeah.
So I can understand it, but I think it just causes confusion for people who've been doing it longer. But whatever. I think it'll be fine. You'll just have to forgive me if I mess it up every once in a while.
I think those actual like, you know, naming having specific names for specific genie types. I think that's cool. I like that. I like leaning into the actual cultural heritage of the concept of genies and Ifrit and all that. That's really cool. I'm curious if anything else fundamental is going to change about them though. It doesn't sound like it's a major important change, but I mean, that sounds neat. Good for him, I guess.
Also, their new genies are coming. The metal ones, which are the Zuras, or Zuhra, and the wood, which is the Kizidars.
Oh, new genies.
I'm excited about that one. And I can't even be angry about any of the naming conventions because they didn't exist before, so, you know.
True. I'm also curious just to see the designs of Metal Genie. I think it'd be dope because everything I hear about what the Metal Kineticist actually is makes me want to play them even more.
They're changing the languages. Air is now going to be Susaran, Earth is going to be Petrin, Fire is going to be Pyrrhic, and Water is going to be Thalassic. Which is weird that it didn't keep the same Middle Eastern naming convention, but who cares?
Maybe
these kind of things
barely
came up anyway.
Yeah.
So
when are you ever like, oh, I know this genie language.
Yeah, I mean, I like the names. I think they're
cool
good. Because Petra is Latin for Earth.
Yeah, maybe it's just some other nation named a language, much like a lot of stuff like the U.S. has done. We call a lot of things different things than what the people native to it call it.
It's called localization.
Yep.
Which is one of the reasons why I will say anathema as much as I want, because it's just a localization. There's a bunch of people who use it, anathema.
Hey, chat. Hey, YouTube comments. Magus.
Magus. I don't know. That might be the case, Definix, but then the genie should have the same kind of method, right? So, because they come from those planes innately as well, which is why like Self and Oriad or whatever made sense. I don't know. I don't really care all too much, honestly. It's just weird.
It's a change. I think if you're trying to like separate stuff and have it be more Pathfinder, I think is kind of sounding what's happening here.
They're really
changes,
they're trying to create extra layers of separation.
I have a feeling that what happened is like just from the sense Genie a little bit throws it up, but I have a feeling it's just legal. Gave a list of things of these are all the possible wiggle room that D&D legal could use to fuck us at some point in the future. Like, let's just change these, make up whatever reason to change it, but these are the possible points that could be attacked.
Yeah, I don't know.
Wouldn't
It's
be
hard to
surprised
say.
if just that happened. I also wouldn't be surprised if I'm overthinking it, and maybe just some creators were like, "Oh, we have a chance to, republish Pathfinder. Can we name a bunch of things to make them purely Pathfinder and try to like get around the D&D naming convention assumptions or other just fantasy naming perceptions you'd have if you heard these creature names?"
Yeah, I don't know. Not anything I'm too stressed about. Though we are getting to some of the ones that I am a little bit more annoyed about personally.
I'm curious what these are.
Flat-footed is being changed to off guard.
Why?
That was my question. Why?
Why?
Technically,
What?
flat-footed is a condition that was in D&D 3.5.
All right, I guess that'd make more sense if my theory of legal sent an email of all the terms, but that doesn't.
I don't
okay,
like off guard because off guard is something we do use currently in our vernaculum. So it's like you catch this guy off guard.
I picture like a whoa.
Yeah.
Startled.
Might get some players confused, like, oh, so is he flat-footed or off guard? Is he off guard? And it's like, well, no, like you got the jump on them, but they noticed you just in time. But you just said they were caught off guard. It's really weird. Flat-footed.
Yeah, flat-footed is gonna be like the clarifying question. Oh, so they're flat-footed? It's like, yeah, they're flat-footed.
Right, because we don't use flat-footed in our current vernaculum very typically.
Yeah. It's a purely game term. I've never heard the term flat-footed or really used the term before playing Pathfinder. It's never come up.
So that one is going to be really hard because it's the most commonly used like debuff in the game is flat-footed.
Yeah.
And so now I'm going to have to try my best to change every instance of flat-footed to off guard. That's going to be a nightmare. I don't know why this one, again, D&D doesn't own the term flat-footed, and 5th edition doesn't even use it.
Yeah, that change feels a little weird.
Well, but flat-footed, in an actual combat sense, is where it's utilized. Because flat-footed means you're in a position where you cannot easily move. You don't, you're not, on your toes, you're not aware or anything. So a flat-footed, a creature in the air being called flat-footed is understood as a creature that, is incapable of moving at the moment. Does it make less sense? Yeah, but it's something that is very easily to determine. Off guard does not mean, someone is necessarily, prone to being attacked, I guess. Your question caught me off guard. I attack him, he's off guard.
That's not a term. Yeah, it means a lot of times you're taken aback. You're surprised at something. Doesn't mean your literal guard is off. That's not how it's used. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Hearing all this I think it'd be really funny if we changed stupefied to bamboozled or flabbergasted. It's why?
Yeah, I don't know. It's very strange. Is it a big deal? No, in the end.
I'm just gonna keep saying flat-footed. So.
You know what? Honestly, same. It's very off guard. Just seems way too generic, I guess.
It gets rid of the clarifying question that's gonna happen each time.
Bamboozled would be a great one.
That'd be funny.
They're changing the Azers, which are the fire plane dwarves. Their names are being changed to Munsahirs, which is fine. I mean, that Azers are also a creature in D&D, so it was just bound to change. That's fine.
Yeah, it's the thing of the changes that I'm not going to ever be upset about are, oh no, the fictional thing is going to be called a different fictional thing. It's like, yeah, it's not a real thing. The only time I'll like be annoyed is a rule changing like fucking off guard and flat footed. That one is the first that you've given where I'm like, that's a little stupid.
It's a little rough. One second. I'm looking on 2 different screens. Let's see here. Ag Silver says, do you think we could convince him to change that one back? I mean, if it gets enough clapback, maybe. I don't think people are going to care that much. And unfortunately, as it is, Pathfinder and Paizo as a company has garnered a lot of attention from people who want to, like, shake up the TTRPG space. So for better or worse, anything that's included as change, people are going to fight tooth and nail to keep.
Yeah, it's also the thing of the people who'd be most at arms about making a campaign to change it probably aren't changing it under the perception of, I'm okay with these other, like, you know, surface level changes, but this is just dumb. Like, can we just not do this? This is stupid. It's going to be people who are already upset that Paizo is destroying Pathfinder because anything is changing.
Right.
Like, those people in the space. That's a thing I keep seeing. The tabletop fan who can't handle any form of change. It's all bad no matter what.
Yeah, so, you know, I don't think we're going to get that one back. We're just going to have to get used to it. It'll be fine.
It's still, even as much as I think the changes, that flat-footed change is dumb, it doesn't impact anything.
Yeah. So, yeah, Moonzahir's planes include some new names. I don't know what that means. They're renaming some of the elemental planes, maybe, or at least locations in them, possibly.
I like the elemental names they've been dropping so far, so yeah, give some unique ones. Give me a cool name rather than the plane of water. Give me like some cool, where it actually feels like a location rather than the plane of water where I just picture a big pool.
Yeah, which, I mean, is fair. I think that having something more than just a plane of water. I mean, but then again, you know, it's just like, it's like Germany and Deutschland, you know? Like, lots of people call it Germany, but the Germans call it Deutschland.
Yeah. So. It makes sense, you know, that's just how things are named, but at the very least, even though factually I understand how the plane of water works, I'm playing a character that's researching it and very invested in that plane currently in our live stream game. So I understand what the plane of water actually is and is broken up with and how it works. Mm-hmm. But whenever I hear the names, plane of fire, I think of just a fire pit that's just really big. The plane of Earth is just flat land in Minecraft. Like that's all I picture. So it's having an actual place name would separate that image to make it, you know, an actual place where people live.
Hector, I'm going to tell you right now, your beginner box still works just as well under the remaster as it does now. So you're fine.
Everything is still completely playable under old Pathfinder rules.
Literally everything we talked about is nothing changed. They just gave it a different name.
Yeah, it's all keyword changes mainly.
So mechanically speaking, the beginner box works just as fine. You're going to be okay.
Which I gotta say, good on a company for doing that. It's a very easy decision to have, like, and now you have to buy all these new things. Wahaha. Like, it's so easy to do that. And instead they're like, no, you can still use all the old stuff. You didn't waste the money. Like, it still works. It's just we're changing these names. That's pretty cool on Paizo.
To see, the thing, Hector, is if they are hooked, they're not going to care.
Yeah, some people are going to be just like, ooh, new book, bye.
Yeah, I do agree, though. It does add a level of complexity and confusion for people. But, you know, it's like nothing has changed. There's just different names. So it's just getting used to that. And you can just not make any of the changes. Archive and Ethos will have all the old terminology still available, and that's a free resource that everyone uses anyway. So you can just use the old version of it from Archive and Ethos and not have to worry about changing anything. You could play old version, still use the new stuff, and just make a few easy conversions. Pretty easy.
Yeah. Just keep calling tieflings and shit.
Let's see here. Oh, this one. Oh no.
Oh, okay.
Attack of opportunity is now going to be called a reactive strike.
Okay. Sure. You can call it that if you really wish. I mean, that has less impact. That just kind of sounds lamer, not gonna lie.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just a weird one. Again, it does mean the same thing. It's just you can make a reactive strike. It's pretty easy to understand what that is referring to. And attack of opportunity is a big D&D thing even now. So
it is. Yes.
It's understand why they changed it. I understand why they changed it. I'm just gonna say, man, change. I feel like I don't like reactive strike.
It's the same thing of just, oh, you get a reactive strike, and then like an old player's like, attack of opportunity. It's like, yeah, you know what I mean. Or the only thing I can give to that's beneficial over fucking off guard is for new players learning attack of opportunity, it immediately answers which resource and action it takes. Like, oh, it's a reactive strike. I use my reaction. It kind of, makes that little hurdle a little easier for new players. It's just going to trip up like veteran players.
Yeah. Again, it's pretty unlike off guard, which might have some weird situations. Reactive strike just is going to make sense.
It makes sense. It makes more sense. It is strictly replacing a thing that comes up in D&D a lot, since everybody has attack of opportunity in 5e. And it's a pretty often said term. So again, just for legal purposes, it's a smart move to separate. I just think the name is worse. I think an opportunity attack in attack of opportunity is just a better name. It has more heft to it.
I ain't gonna join no rallies to revert it back or anything, but it is what it is.
The only change where I'd ever like sign a petition, like click a button to do that, is like, can we just keep flat-footed? It just sounds better.
Here's one that I genuinely like. Spell rank is replacing spell level. It is
separate from level, because that is very annoying.
That's something that new players get mixed up. Is I'm level 10, so can I cast 10th level spells? No. Spell levels are different than your character levels. Now it's a hurdle what your spell rank is.
It's the same reason why I like how they're changing ability scores, is because it just takes away the necessity of a conversation with a new player that I've had a lot. I've had that conversation of like, okay, so ability score, so I get a plus 15 to this roll. It's like, no, you get a plus 3. It's like, what? And you have to go through and explain it. It takes away the conversation, which is a good thing for new players. It means they're less confused.
Yeah. So, that's this one completely fine, no problems. I think it's good.
Really good.
I there's nothing to be overly concerned about. We're good to go. And actually, Ag's mentioning something interesting here, which is in D&D, you needed special magic to essentially go anywhere, and you needed magic to breathe in the plane of Earth because it's the plane of Earth, not the plane of Earth and air. In Pathfinder's mythos, there are sections of the regions that actually brush up against other planes. So there is actually some areas of the plane of Earth where it is Earth and air. Some plane of air leaks into the Earth section.
Oh yeah, I remember you told me that in Riptide about how the plane of, I think isn't fire and air intersect with the plane of water?
They all intersect each other.
Oh, they all intersect. Okay. Yeah, I remember you were telling about like the different locations and how they intersect and how the water changes. And it's a super dope system. I like that a lot more.
Yeah, like in the plane of water, the water gets saltier the closer to the plane of Earth you get.
Makes sense. That's how that works.
So it's very interesting. I thoroughly enjoy it.
I enjoy that a lot. I thought 5th editions worked the same way. I guess not. That is very lame. Shame on you, Wizard of the Coast. Why don't you have good lore?
Let's see. Spell schools. I'm conflicted on this one because I genuinely like the idea of spell schools, and it's unfortunately something that is going to still, like, it still needs to be in the game to some degree for classes like Magus that actually does rely on spell school when using their Arcane Cascade.
Or Wizard as well.
A little bit. Wizard getting a whole nother rework, which is removing the
Yeah.
school aspects.
It's the part why I'm watching some of the remasters so intently, because every part of my character is being altered because of the remaster.
Yeah. The illusion spells will still have their own special classification of illusion. I understand that this is, again, another proximity thing to D&D because, you know, they have the schools of magic, yada yada. But I do like how that they're split up, and it can inform you on the kinds of things. It also makes sense that there are different schools of magic based on what they can do, like,
Yeah.
from a logical sense. So removing that completely is just, I feel like, taking away more than it's adding. So
It muddies the water a little bit with its removal.
I would have even preferred name changes over just removing it altogether.
Yeah.
And this is also like a game aspect thing. There's a variety of like archetypes or abilities or even items that allow you to cast certain types of spells. Like Summoner is also going to suffer because Fae gives you the ability to cast all primal and arcane spells with the illusion or enchantment tags, I believe. So I think this one's really messy. I think removing it is going to be more of a problem than it's going to help.
We'll curious what the solution is going to be, because I have a feeling that they'll find a solution that'll like basically get around it. Aren't they changing the spell school thing? Like, you're not an evocation wizard, you're a wizard from an actual spell school in the world. Isn't that how?
Well, not necessarily, but it's like you went to war. You trained under a war mage college.
Okay.
The kind of stuff they're going for.
The type of college rather than like that. Because
Right.
I would say if it's, you know, instead of the evocation wizard, you're a wizard from this specific college. I think it'd be a really cool method of characterization to immediately tie your character in with a part of the game world. I think that could be cool, but I don't know.
I don't know. This is something that no matter what the remaster is doing, people are going to have to go back to the old content anyway to fix, because there's some classes they're not touching with the remaster stuff right away, like Magus or like Summoner. Tons of archetypes as well kind of rely on this, like the Captivator, which is one of my favorite archetypes. So this one's just really messy. No two ways about it.
I'm just curious what the change actually is going to be and how it is in play, because I'm going to be directly impacted by that. That's going to be just a thing to wrap my head around.
Well, it says right here, are no longer a part of the game. The illusion still follows special rules. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I want to see it in play, but that feels weird.
Another one that I don't know why they changed it. Maybe because it was an older edition thing and I just never touched it in older edition D&Ds. But positive and negative traits and essentially damage are going to be changed to Vitality and Void.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy that they're at least keeping that style of damage type in general. I guess it's just, same thing under a different name.
Yeah, I don't know, because I don't remember D&D using positive and negative. They have necrotic and radiant, which, I mean, do sound pretty cool, honestly. But
they are cool.
Positive and negative energy just makes sense. It's kind of like a polarization thing. It's a D&D 3.5 thing. I see.
Oh, fair enough then.
I never played 3. I played a little bit of 3.5, but I didn't play those kind of characters. I played a warlock for a short amount of time.
Yeah, I've never even touched 3.5.
So yeah, understandable why again, but Vitality and Void. I mean, Void Magic sounds really cool, but I don't think it's
It
gonna give you
does.
that same because people associate Void Magic with like gravity or like space or something, you know, and
Yeah, opening up a black hole on somebody. Which, like,
yeah,
you know what? That'd be the fix. Paizo, if you're listening, if you want to make people less upset about the change, uh, add some cool spells that are strictly void aesthetic. That'd be sick.
yeah. So that's a very weird one.
That's weird.
It was at this point when I was reading this the first time that I was like, okay, maybe they needed to change some words, and this is just what they ended up with. And it might have just been hard.
Yeah, I still think that legal sent an email. It was like, here's the list of all the crossover. We need to get rid of all of it.
Yeah. You know, Axe Silver, I would half agree with you. I think parts of Forgotten Realms are more fleshed out from the hundreds of books and all that kind of stuff that came out. But the whole world of Forgotten Realm, there's a lot of just gaps all over the place of very rarely touched regions. A lot of it is just Sword Coast or Sword Coast adjacent.
Yeah, the Sword Coast is pretty cool because it's the only part I see ever. But also it's just like 5e, like Faerun lore is always lore that I hear that I'm like, I mean, I guess, yeah, fantasy world stuff. At least Galarian has stuff where I'm like, oh shit, that's dope. That's really cool. I've never had the oh shit, that's sick response from Faerun lore.
You know, I've honestly had neither games. The best world so far that I've done that's kind of medieval fantasy is Animal Beyond Fantasy.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's other than that, or just run your next Pathfinder game in Tamriel.
Right.
Because that will just inherently bake in. Because I know you're wanting to implement some modern stuff. That is just a stealth sci-fi system when you really break some stuff down.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna do a complete homebrew for Plague Watch. I'm very excited for Plague Watch.
I'm excited.
Wish is now a ritual. It's no longer a 10th level spell. Okay, I guess. I mean, It makes it less easy to cast, I'm assuming.
I hear a lot of horror stories with Wish, so...
Are they changing the other variant ones as well? Also, why is it so Wish? Because that's a big D&D thing.
That's true. Maybe the term is so universal, but, I mean, there's other, like, things that they're changing. You can make that same argument. That's weird.
This is, honestly, in the whole lot, this is one of the weirdest ones.
Yeah, I mean...
So...
Maybe it's just some designers thinking we need to rebalance this and, like, let's pack this in. But, I don't know. Yeah, that feels like something that should have got a new name. Because, like, that's in 5e. Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah.
So... I'm not upset by the change or anything. I think it might be make the Wish spell more impactful. Since you have to tie it in and actually work for that level of power.
Yeah.
But,
I don't know. So, man, you know what's funny? We started talking about this particular subject, and that's not even the subject of today's video, or of today's chat.
I think it's interesting. It is an interesting point, though, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean it is. Yeah, this is. Someone mentioned like it feels like a lot of it is just change for the sake of change. I mean, I doubt it's necessarily that simple. I think a lot of it's just legal, litigation tie-ups.
The higher ups tell the designers to change the names, and there's maybe even some of these names are like I don't know, fucking off guard. Sure, that kind of deal of just can we not change this? No, legal says we should. It's an order from the higher ups. So you got to do it.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, fucking okay. Which that happens. That happens a lot in game design stuff. You just have to deal with the other parts of the company that aren't game design.
So yeah, that's a topic that a lot of people have been somewhat talking about lately. Is it too much? And the question is probably, or the answer to that question is probably no. It's probably like out of a necessity. It just is going to feel weird because it's like when you have a friend, who recently has transitioned or changed their name, and you've known them for a long time by that name, and it's just you have an imprint of that person in your brain as said person, and they completely change, and you got to work through it, and it's just you're gonna stumble a few times and get it to work out. It's just gonna be weird for a little bit because everything you knew or thought you knew about something has just changed, and you gotta make it work.
But much like that system, I mean, that analogy, not much inherently has changed, and it's not for the worse. It's just a change that occurred. Because it's just all of these, I'm like, they're all changes where I'm like, I guess, yeah, sure. Well, you can call that something different. Hearing the actual list of changes all back to back is, yeah, this is some legal shit that's going on. This is purely to make sure 5e has nothing over them.
I mean,
it's not the discussion I see whenever I get the discourse on Twitter, when it finally crosses my feed and isn't 40k related. It's Pathfinder remastered. It's never the conversation. It's the game is ruined, rebalance. Yeah. It's like, that's not what's happening here. It's strictly in response to like the massive bullshit we had about the OGL. That's all this is. It's a legal response to make sure Pathfinder has their ass covered. Like, you don't need to pretend it's something deeper. Like, that's the part where I'm like, please, tabletop fans, understand how like legal battles work in companies. Just understand.
Yeah. In any regard, I mean, it is whatever.
Yeah, it's just gonna be, some people are just still gonna call it flat-footed, like I will, because I'm just gonna be like, yeah, off guard sounds weird. I don't like. That's the only one I don't like. Because I'm like, it just doesn't sound right.
Yeah. It's just so like, obviously nothing has actually changed. All the stuff we mentioned, nothing has changed except for maybe some class functionality when it came to like the most damaging one in my opinion was removing spell tradition or spell classifications.
Yeah. I have a feeling there's a solution, or maybe they'll give something that's like, oh, in practice this works exactly the same. It just takes away this like clarifier or something. I don't know. I feel like they're not just going to put out a thing and then be like, oh, we didn't think about that problem. Like, we didn't think how it would fuck that up. I think they might have just not told us what the fix is, which I want to know what the system in place is going to be then, because it certainly sounds like some of my spell casting is going to get fucked around with. I want to have that assurance from Paizo, but it doesn't sound like they've given any.
It's because
remaster is not a thing anymore.
Yeah, it isn't going to be out for a few more months anyway, so
yeah,
just going to be some time.
Exactly.
But hey, Fullimus, just join what are the criteria to consider a best TTRPG. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the actual topic of today's table talk.
Oh yeah.
Without getting sidetracked.
This is our big point of, is Pathfinder the best? Is the remaster dialogue? That's what we meant to do.
Yeah, 100%. It's totally connected, I promise.
That's what Cam and I were talking about before we started streaming.
Masterminded.
Yeah, we were guiding this.
So is Pathfinder 2nd Edition the best TTRPG out there? No.
No.
What? No? The problem is, it's like saying that steak is the best dinner out there, right? Like, there can't be a it's like asking someone what their favorite movie is. They might have one, but it might change in a few years because some other movie might have came across. There's different ways of judging it.
People might have different reasons, because like, I actually, for that analogy, I have a favorite movie, but it's not because of the movie, it's because what the movie did, where it's the movie that inspired me to go on and do what I do. Like, the movie Hot Fuzz completely was the reason, but that's, it's the same point of how do you clarify that question? Like, that's, how do you, like, what is the question, what does the best thing mean? Because it's like, for that one, I wouldn't say it's the best, it's just my favorite, because it means a lot. Like, it's such a very dependent on the person receiving the question. And I mean, we can all like, go around it, but the best tabletop system is Anima Beyond Fantasy. That's just the objective answer. Because I like it the most.
That's not even true.
I do. Pathfinder, I love Anima is my favorite tabletop system. Your Anima. Your Anima Beyond Fantasy is my favorite is my favorite tabletop game. I think it's the best tabletop game I've ever played.
Yeah.
Actually, no, it is the best tabletop I've played.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
Gotta stick to your guns.
I like it. I got to. That's how I define best. It's what I think is good.
No, I think a question could be better raised. Is Pathfinder 2e the best designed TTRPG? And I would go to state that it is. It just feels good to play. It feels very, like, airtight in a lot of places. And mechanically speaking, Pathfinder 2e gives the greatest level of balance to the game, like TTRPGs, of like any other TTRPG. Like when it comes to encounter design, when it comes to validation of like character option choices, whether it comes to validation of skill choices. Like there's a lot of games where you pick skills that you just end up never using in any situation. And Pathfinder 2e actually gamifies them and makes them fun.
There's a lot of things where I could see asking the DM and getting a chance to use a feat I got rather than having to hope and pray that it comes up in the game naturally.
What are your preferred aspects of a RPG? I'm assuming you mean TTRPG, because RPG and TTRPG are very different things.
I assume that's what it means, just tabletop.
Yeah.
Fun for me.
But what's fun? What aspect of that is fun?
That's a good
I'll go
question.
first, and that maybe I'll help you out.
Probably won't.
Like for me, it's like the aspects are narrative and gaming and how closely connected they are. The more a system blends narrative with mechanics, the better it is as a TTRPG, in my opinion. So the aspects of the games are the mechanics in the game narratively satisfying, and is my character able to do narratively satisfying things using the mechanics in the game? That's like pretty much all I really care about. There's a lot of other things that obviously do matter, of course, like setting. Setting's a huge part of TTRPGs, actually.
A super major thing.
But I feel like there's a lot of really good settings out there with kind of mid TTRPG mechanics, and those games are just not as fun to play.
Yeah, okay, so I'm realizing there's two aspects of this. One is actually, thought out and has points behind it. The other one is just kind of how I broach a lot of things, especially the game stuff, with my perspective on games, is I have this innate thing where, does this make me happy? Does this just hit dopamine? And I'm like, yeah, cool. Do I have the, whoa, that's sick moments? Like, that's what Lancer hits me with. That's what Pathfinder hits me with. That's what Anima hits me with, where I read a thing and I'm like, that's the fucking coolest thing I've ever read. Hell yeah. And like, I need that innate feeling of just, whoa, this appeals to my taste. But then like the actual other, when it comes to a design for tabletop, one of the main things I look for is, how are the rules implemented in the system, and do I think they're going to be more of a hindrance than they're worth? Since a lot of times I lean more into, despite how much I like Anima and I like Pathfinder, I really lean heavily towards a lot of rules light systems, because a lot of times there's some tabletop rules that feel very like, what's the point of asking this? Does it actually fundamentally change it's why I don't like pockets in Pathfinder, like how they work. It feels like a question of, this doesn't change anything. This is just a weird hurdle for the rules because the book said so. And I can't stand the feeling of, you cannot do thing, book says no. It's like, we're all human beings. You can just say yes and let us flow. I like games that are designed to keep the flow going and keep the pace, which I think a lot of rules light do well, and it's the reason I'm fucking loving Monster of the Week, since all of it is so on the player's side to keep it flowing. That's what I enjoy the most. I just like that perfect, like, RPG flow state of narrative and gameplay where it just feels like you're in constant uptime. You're not sitting there paging through shit. You're just playing the game for as long as possible.
I don't know. I guess, I mean, like, it's kind of an each to their own kind of thing, right?
Oh yeah, it's
But
purely like what is
I,
your taste in stuff.
I've definitely played some, like, TTRPG light games that were just not fun because there just wasn't anything to interact with. It was just group storytelling, which
You're doing improv, calling it a game so you don't feel embarrassed of doing improv.
which is weird. And
Yeah.
you know, like I it's not that I think narrative group storytelling is bad, but like I'm going to want to play something. I'm going to want to get some kind of feedback from the game in some variety or form, some validation of the things they're doing. Like, I want my character to feel special. You know how you make characters feel special? By making weird builds with your characters and doing mechanically things that feel interesting. So, I do think, I agree with the statement that I think a good RPG is one that can streamline it to a degree that you don't need to do a bunch of math or look up a bunch of states or whatever to know the outcome of a simple action. But I do think that there needs to be at least some weights to choice that makes a game a game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, when I picture for me like a really good rules light system, I am picturing like Monster of the Week, VTM. Is that a rules light system?
No,
'Cause I feel
VTM
like
is
it
not rules light.
Okay, fair enough. It's like, yeah, Monster of the Week. I like Blades in the Dark, but I think that Blades in the Dark would be a game that will be carried by the group, me liking the group I'm playing it with. Because if I was playing it with people who weren't all my close friends who I completely trust and know can carry a full role play thing, which, mainly our group.
Right.
But like, I would never join or fully enjoy a rando table of Blades in the Dark.
Right.
But like Monster of the Week, of all of the rules like games I've played, I think is the best. I think there's just enough game to interact with and just enough like figured out to interact with that I like it. I feel like once we really get the handle of Monster of the Week, that shit's gonna flow. I'm so excited for like our combats months down the line.
Yeah, I don't know. I like Monster of the Week. I feel it's good. I feel like you're right. It has enough heft to it to be fun. I just don't think it could ever be a game that I would play super extensively, just due to the lack of like build choice or really anything like to interact with directly, because it's like a lot of it is just, hey GM, I want to make a thing, or I want to do this ritual. Does it work? Just use your big magic roll, I guess. And does it succeed, yes or no? Like, there's nothing there that makes it actually work or not, rather than just the GM saying yes or no. And a game that I feel like would be a really fun game is something that you can explore, and the game actually helps you decide like whether something actually works or not. And so like, I think it's a fun game. I think we're already having fun. I think there's some heft to it. I just feel like eventually it's a game I'll get bored of, because all it is just a narrative game in the end that has very little in the way of mechanics, that once you do like a hunt, a lot of the repeating hunts are going to feel very samey in some ways, because you just don't have a big toolkit to really do a whole bunch with.
Yeah, it's very lifted on the DM to make each hunt different.
Yes, and
yeah,
that is something that I actually really care about as far as TTRPGs, because GMs are kind of the lifeblood of the hobby. So when you make a system that forces them to work harder, I feel that's only a failing of the system rather than helping the game, you know what I mean? Monster of the Week is not intended to be a very deep RPG experience, which is why I say it's something I'll get bored of rather than it's a problem with the system. It's not a problem with the system. The system does what it wants to do really well, I think, and I agree. It's got enough there that you can bite into it. You can go through a campaign with your friends and enjoy it. But doing repeat campaigns, I feel, is just something that I would not be as motivated to do.
Yeah.
Because once you kind of do it one full time through, you're kind of done. And other TTRPGs like Pathfinder, man, there's so many different ways that it's not even like playing the game changes. It's more just the way you approach how you play the game changes dramatically. Because I guarantee your character is going to play very differently from Magus to Gunslinger, or Druid to Ranger.
Yeah.
You know, they just are going to play differently, and not only that, but they're going to interact with the game incredibly differently. You know, many of my builds, I explore different ways to define a play style, things you like to, you know, versus things you don't like in a game.
And real quick for you following this, Monster of the Week is a rules light that follows isn't it the something of the Apocalypse?
Powered by the Apocalypse system.
Powered by the Apocalypse. It is a rules light system that is very like monster movie horror camp. Like all the classes, the playbooks, they're very open-ended. Like a lot of stuff's just very open-ended and kind of leans on horror tropes. Like you can just, if you really wanted to, you can just play Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. That's kind of some of the abilities Devin has.
Yeah, pretty much.
You can have you can play your typical noir TV detective, all that stuff. It's very campy fun, but it's very based on, as it kind of sounds, you go on hunts. Like almost every session is a different hunt. You know, Monster of the Week. As you would describe a lot of like cartoons and stuff, it's a Monster of the Week story. It's super fun. It's a fun thing to look into. I'm pretty sure you can find the core book for free online, sourced by the people. So I think it's a fun read through if you're just interested surface level on the ideas being thrown into it.
It would probably be one of my first baby's first TTRPG games I'd take someone through. I think it's perfect for that.
I think so too. It's fun. I also think that it's interesting based on the thing you were saying before. I'm honestly wondering if the upbringing you had in tabletop games, you know, does determine your taste. Much like, you know, you're determined to some extent for your life and your personality based on previous experiences. Because I had a lot of early tabletop experiences where it was a very rules adversarial environment that was fostered in me, because I was playing games that were ran in parts of using the rules against the players in some aspect, like, you know, DM versus player. That's not how you should be doing it, unless the game is literally made to be like that. There's a board game that's really cool that is literally, you know, evil DM is going after the party, which is dope. It's a really fun game. But like having that from an early bit, regardless of how me knowing now, that's not how this should be done. That's not how good DMs do it. You know, you, Cam, are not like that in any way, but it did instill that just feeling in me where rules are something that get in the way of me having fun. Where I want to do something cool narratively and I try to describe a cool narrative thing. It's like, well, okay, so the rule you described is actually these 5 separate actions. So we're gonna have to break this down. It's like, well, or like the thing you're describing doesn't change anything. It's not giving me an advantage. It's just meant for narrative flair. And now you're trying to bog this down with rules. It's like, it kind of hits me because I'm trying to like make it all cinematic and narrative in my head, because that's how I think of things. I'm a movie guy. I'm a film guy. So it's instilled that feeling, which is why I really like looking into rules light systems, because I'm like, oh my God, this book is so tiny. I can just play a game.
Yeah. Well, you know, funny. It's so interesting, Alex. I think lately you've just been on a very weird introspective.
I've been like this. I'm just more willing to voice it.
Bender. Oh, well, I guess I don't know. There's recently you've said a lot of things, even in private, that's been more like, you know what? Maybe it's not exactly like this, and it's been very very refreshing at times. And you're right. I mean, like anything in life, past experiences form who we are. So taste in board game or tabletop is going to be completely based on prior experiences, and that's probably true. It's something that it's funny. For a long time, I didn't want to play any D&D at all, like not tabletop, but D&D specifically, because I just had this impression of D&D players were these super med-maxy, metagamey kind of like just all about the make like draining all the fun out of narrative for the sake of mechanics. And I was just like, I don't like that. I don't want to deal with that at all.
Like the people who just want to do the dungeon delves and like role play stories, fuck that.
Yeah, and I was just like, that's why Anima was such a fun game, because it was such a new open setting, and they had a loose enough framework where you could kind of make anything work, that it was, but still have some structure to it, that it felt good. But, you know, as I've grown and as I've been doing like DMing for as long as I have now, and, you know, like tabletop specifically and tabletop theory is like my life passion. It's something that I've invested a heavy amount of time, effort, and energy into, because I think tabletop is such a unique style of gaming that you just can't get anywhere else. You can be the main hero in your story, and it doesn't even have to be you. It can be an aspect of you. You can get your ideal characters out. Like, that's what drew me to tabletop in the first place, was making personalized narratives that you just can't find anywhere else. You know, that's why Anima games have been so fun for us, because when I hit your character arcs and when we did like each thing, that's your experience. You're the only one who gets to have that. And it's very meaningful and life-changing for a lot of people. Like, tabletop is huge. And so, like, a lot of what I have put time and energy into was, like, breaking down tabletop as much as possible to make it feel better. Because Pathfinder 2e, as we talked about earlier, is probably one of the most mechanically, like, tight and nice feeling, like, high performance vehicles for tabletop out there right now. I still change things.
It all works so well. And even then, yeah, some parts just kind of fall through because you just don't like them. Like diagonal movement, how that's supposed to work is stupid.
Yeah, diagonal movement just doesn't make sense on the grid. It makes sense in like a spacing sense, but in a grid sense, it just really doesn't make a lot of sense, and it just gets a little clunky. Also, how I combine drawing weapons with movements. As long as you take a move action, you can draw an item from a pouch or a weapon from a holster or something, you know. That combination, allowing to do that, has allowed players to do a lot more and doesn't really affect game balance at all. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of things I've tweaked, but the things I tweaked were things that are very player orientated. I've never once tweaked things to be more GM orientated, because even when it's something of like, okay, I don't like how this works because it makes the players too strong, it's because I don't want our players' experience to be cheapened by, you know, one-shotting a boss because a spell is just broken and can sever existence. It's like, how can I give you a tight, fun combat that makes you like heart-pounding when you can just insta-kill the boss? Like, you're literally cheating yourself out of an experience doing that.
True. It's that balance, I think, and I think it's the difference we have, where it's the perspective we bring. Since I am a person who really just likes the player side of things, and so I think tabletop theory is very interesting, and I think it's an interesting conversation to be had. It's never something I am super invested in when it comes to getting into new games, or just keep continuing playing other games, because I'm focused on, I just want to have a good time in a game with my friends. Where, yeah, it's the main thing of, I think that difference we have for tabletop preference of when it's the idea of, yeah, at that point, you're just sitting around a table telling a group story, where it's like, yeah, that's what I want. That's my end goal that I want to have, and, you know, not everyone's like that. Everyone has their different tastes that they bring into things, which, yeah, I mean, even as much as I go on about how my taste tabletop is, I fucking adore Pathfinder. And my favorite system is Anima, because I just love making a character in Anima because they feel so fucking cool. Anima characters hit different, dude. I don't know. There's something about their power sets. Maybe it's because they're all fucking broken that makes them so fun.
Is.
Yeah. I've never had as much fun than I've had like using the key system to its full extent using the psychic stuff to its full extent. It's immensely fun. Summoning is fucking awesome. It's like that. There's just it just hits different, and I feel really good interacting with the systems. But also inherently, Anima Beyond Fantasy is a deeply flawed game, and if you want to fully get a lot out of it, you have to heavily modify it to make it something different.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I think it's not one of the best games, because a lot of the fun you guys had came at my own costs, my own efforts, and the sheer amount of brain power and work I needed to maintain that experience.
Oh yeah, it's a very DM intensive, which honestly, hearing that, yeah, I can see why you just want games to have more systems in place to uplift the DM and take less effort off their shoulders, because if that's your main DMing experiences with Anima, I understand.
Well, and it's not even the first game I played, not even close.
Yeah, not the first, but like, didn't you? I thought you once said that Anima was like the game you've DM'd the most.
It is. We did play it for the longest amount of time.
So I can see why that inherently is like, I just want games to not give me more work, because you played a system where you inherently had to.
Yeah. And again, I did a lot of it, and I don't regret any of it, because it was a lot of fun. But after playing 5th edition, which felt really fun from a DM perspective for a bit, until you figure out that, oh wait, no, actually there's just nothing here.
It feels great when you have the rose tinted glasses on, you're in the honeymoon phase. It feels pretty good.
It's like you're in a Minecraft world, and then the world suddenly ends, but you need to keep moving forward. So you need to start going mining materials, then crouch setting blocks to keep moving forward. Just not fun. And Pathfinder, in turn, was way more fun, because all the problems that 5th edition had, Pathfinder solved. And so Pathfinder is so easy to run when you understand it. And that's kind of the caveat, is when you understand it, which for some people might take longer than others. It also just depends on how into tabletop you are, and that's kind of like the crux of this whole thing, right? Is there is no one tabletop. You can argue that Pathfinder is the most well-made system to date. I don't even think it will stay that way. I think there'll be better games as tabletop evolves. But whether that's what you want from an experience is different. Some people are very much... I dated someone who for the longest time had a narrative fetish, where it was just things only got hot and heavy when we were telling stories, right? So that kind of person absolutely loves something rules light, where there's just not a lot getting in the way between what they really want, which is the narrative. They like narrative so much that that's the only thing they care about. And simultaneously, there's all of those war gamers out there who want a very nitty gritty, point by point system, because they love superiority by superior math. They like knowing they're going to win ahead of time because they know that their math is better.
And even then, there's going to be because you can go the different depths of it. You could play I just want to have a fun time with a war game. Let me pick up Age of Sigmar, 10th edition 40k, or you can get weird and complicated if you really hate yourself and learn how to play bolt action, which is a fucking lot. It's a very nitty gritty World War II war game. It is very intensive. Or you can go to the other extent, where that same company has an alt history version of Bolt Gun that uses some of the same armies, where let's see, the Russians have werewolves, the US has mechs, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can go down those different extremes.
I mean, that's the thing, right? That's the great thing about literally anything, is variety. Variety is the spice of life. And even kind of harking back way to the beginning when I was talking about what's your favorite movie, that might change. or even if it's your favorite movie, it's not a movie you could watch back to back to back to back, because that's just not how people work in general. Some people do. Some people, like children, can watch the same movie over and over and over again, and be fine. I couldn't, not to save my life. And so it's like, what is the best? It's whatever you're going to have more fun with at the state and time you are in your life right now. Lancer is a game that I think could be really, really fun if you get tired of doing all the fantasy medieval stuff and you just kind of want to pilot mechs, and the mech combat, it does feel really, really good in Lancer. So I could see myself really, really liking Lancer for like an amount of time. I honestly, to this day, I still want to make my own TTRPG, because I don't feel like there's a TTRPG that fits exactly what I want quite yet. Not even Pathfinder, even though I dedicate a lot of time and have pretty much become like one of the premier Pathfinder like go-to people, because I've talked to and seen a lot of people, and there's still a lot of people who don't quite get like even the design principles of the game. It still doesn't do everything for me. There's still a lot of aspects that I feel are missing. And then it's also could just be an aesthetic / theming thing. Like, maybe you just kind of want to do a Western, Maybe like Weird West is just something that sticks in your brain and you really want to do it. And the only place you're going to get that, it's going to be Deadlands. So
yeah, it's also the worst thing when it comes to that? Those awful moments where you're like, all I want is this genre of tabletop, and then you try multiple tabletops in that genre, and you're like, I hate this.
Yeah.
And you have that sinking feeling of, is there a good system for this? Because, like, Lancer, I think Lancer's the only sci-fi tabletop RPG I've played that I fully actually enjoyed. I even like Wrath and Glory, I think is really cool, but it's hard carried by me liking Warhammer.
Yeah.
But like, Lancer's the only sci-fi tabletop game I've played and fully loved based on the mechanics. And I'm like, there's one out here for me. Shame it's mechs, but at least it's the one style of mechs I enjoy. Because I think the art just goes hard for Lancer. The Star Wars one. Okay, the Star Wars one. Yeah, that one's actually really good.
Yeah.
I also just hate Star Wars. I don't like Star Wars in the setting. I think it's really boring to me. So that's held back by that. But someone who really likes Star Wars can make a cool Star Wars story that hits the notes I care about in sci-fi. But primarily, I just want I want Star Wars to be like Warhammer, and that's not a fair ask.
I want more modern fantasy blends. Like, I want that more, like, kind of like the anime aesthetic, I guess, is just, give me magic and guns. Give me mech suits and kaijus, Give me something that feels really good. I'm tired of hidden world stuff because it just never feels good. Like, Vampire and a lot of the World of Darkness stuff do feel relatively good, but it just doesn't have the level of high fantasy that I really am searching for. You know what I mean? Like, the vampires are strong, but you have to restrain yourself because of the setting. Just let me be like a magic wielding, gun shooting individual on an alien planet fighting crazy monsters. That sounds like a lot of fun, and those games just don't exist currently.
Yeah, true. And yeah, you know what? Devin makes a very good point here. In that system, when you create it and you have that blend you want, make a class called Kaiju.
I mean, you can be a kaiju in Pathfinder 2e. There's literally a spell called Kaiju.
Oh, shit. Alright, damn. I'll try to get it then.
Do you prefer milestone or XP to leveling, and why? Or Primal Caster?
feels better on a player side, but I also understand why milestone has its merits. I think it depends on how the DM uses it at the end of the day.
Yeah. Also, some systems just do XP better than others. I hate D&D 5e's XP system. Some of the increases just feel random, and it feels like it just gets harder and harder to get stuff you like more. And a game shouldn't like time gate you on when you get upgrades, like the more you play. Like upgrades to your character should feel rather consistent and like periodic. That's why I love Pathfinder, because in Pathfinder you level pretty regularly, and that feels
true.
good.
Yeah, it's the main thing of like, yeah, literally that. Like milestone can feel rough, but inherently like your DM, you have a good DM, you understand there's a reason for milestone. It's the pacing of the campaign. All of our level ups will feel like earned or rewarded, like we'll achieve some major thing and also get the level up as the cherry on top. Feels great. But you're missing that little fun hit of, ooh, I only got 1,000 more XP to level up next session. You're like looking so forward to it. Like you have that hit. It just is different. And then yeah, some DMs have such a are so averse to giving out lots of XP that like it just, you kind of feel like that anyways. You're waiting so long to level up in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's based on the quality of the DM pacing. I think both have a lot of merits, but from someone who largely focuses on the player side, I like XP because I like seeing the bar increase. And I like being like, oh, I'm so close. It feels good.
It's funny you say player aspect, because XP doesn't really do much for GMs other than just how quickly your players get stronger.
I just mean that it's GMs having the debate of, which should I use, milestone or XP? It's usually the DMs having that discussion.
I mean, that's fair, but that's because they're the grand arbiter of the game. So
yeah, exactly.
They like have to.
That's the point. It's, if I have to pick from like as a player, I'm like, I want XP if I'm playing it. If I'm running a game, I'd probably make it milestone because I tie level ups around story events that have impact.
Yeah. I prefer XP for really the simple fact of I love player awards. We give player awards in all of our RPG sessions for any game we play, really, except for Lancer, which did feel a bit weird.
It felt weird that we weren't like chatting about numbers at the end. It was like, oh, we're done. Oh, okay. Because
for me, and this is kind of again tabletop theory and like getting down to the nitty-gritty of what makes tabletop fun, reinforcing good behavior through XP gain is really helpful, and it makes your players really more likely to do certain actions or to validate actions they already took. Like we do XP for most damage dealt, most damage taken. None of my players ever really go out of their way to try to earn those awards, but they earn them naturally through the game, and then they're like, yeah, I feel kind of cool, I did the most damage, that feels really great. Or like utility, even like good ideas or plans, like when the players did something really smart, getting an XP reward feels good. Same thing with doing difficult actions. Players do something that's very difficult, so getting rewarded for that feels really good. It's just kind of like hitting that dopamine of validation for how you play a game, or for a GM to manipulate players' mentalities by rewarding them for doing certain things.
That's the key point.
Is a very integral part to, I think, why our tabletop, the ones I run specifically, feel very good, and why a lot of people really love my games, and why I've been very successful running many long-term campaigns up until this point. Like, it's just, there's just a lot of validation, and it makes players feel good. And like, this actually leads to a very interesting point. We're at the end about now, but I want to end off at this point because I find it very interesting. People always assume worst best case scenarios whenever you mention any kind of change, right? Like just now when I mentioned I give XP for players doing most damage, then you're like, oh, so you're just gonna have players who do nothing but min-max their builds. No, actually, it's not how it works in practice.
Nope. I'm not doing damage because I'm like, ooh, I bet I'm gonna get 10 XP today. Ooh, and I'm not coming up with good ideas because 10 XP is waiting for me at the end of this session. It's like I have a good idea and I'm like, oh, let's do this thing. Oh, I did a really cool combo attack. And then it's like, oh, and I get XP for it? Don't mind if I do. Like it's like a nice little treat on top of things.
Yeah. It's kind of like the alignment thing, right? It's just like, oh, you're playing an evil game, and some people are like, I hate evil games, because players just use evil games as an excuse to do really heinous stuff, like an assumption of the worst kind, when in practice rarely comes out that way. People always assume that whenever you mention something that is exploitable, that it's going to be inherently exploited, when in reality, most of the time, that doesn't happen. You know what I mean?
I've had this discussion, especially with Q a few times, where talking about like a possible rule thing, and he's like, "Yeah, but I just don't want to do it this way because it'd be exploited." And I'm like, "I wouldn't have thought to exploit it until you directly told me that's how I could exploit it. Like I was just going to engage with it normally because you're my friend and I want to treat your game with respect. Like that's not how I'd interact with this at all, because we're friends. It's a lot of times you're playing tabletop with your friends and you should have some good communication between them and understand, hey guys, can you please treat my game with respect, and this is what I want out of it. Please don't like come to the game trying to destroy everything I've built. Should be that level of respect there.
Yeah. And I mean, but it's true that sometimes it does get exploited. I've run anima for a lot of people. Some people, it just, in the end, I couldn't run the game for them because they were just the kind of person to exploit anima, and it's such an easy to exploit game, and when you exploit it you become super broken, and that just wasn't the vibe, you know. So it just had to be a thing of, sorry, we just can't play in the same games. I like you as a person, but you know, if you can't help yourself, then there's nothing I can do. So
yeah, and I, as someone who, I never go to a game trying to find ways to break it, because I always go to a game with, this is a cool character, and then I play it to the character. And the only time I've ever done that was when I made a character. Cam and Devin helped me fix it to make it not shit. And then I was like, oh god, it's overpowered. Oh, it's overpowered. Oh no.
Yeah, that wasn't your fault either. It was just, it was also just like your first time playing in anima, and yeah. That's just anima,
it was just though. I wanted a gunslinger, and then I was told, oh, here's a method to be a gunslinger because the method you have sucks. And I'm like, oh shit, this exists, and it's just overpowered. I didn't go out of my way to seek it. I just wanted to have pistols.
Yep, it was just broken. It was just a broken thing in the game. That was
broken on launch.
Yeah. So, you know, and so it's like, when you're talking about like milestone versus XP or whatever, I feel like a lot of GMs use milestone because they're afraid of their characters getting too powerful too quickly. And that can always be solved on the DM. The DM can always do it, but that's also more work on the DM. In the end, it's kind of whatever works best for you in your party. I don't think there is an objectively better way, because it is whatever kind of vibes with you. I'm the kind of person who seeks constant gain and growth. If I max out in a game, I'm done playing that game. It's just what happens. And if I feel like actions I'm doing aren't getting me anywhere, it also feels bad. So I need something that drips feed me progression without making it painful or without making me get too powerful too quickly. Yeah, and whatever works for you, you know. Tabletop, again, variety. Everyone likes what they like. Everyone prefers certain things. There's people who just straight up hate Tolkien-esque fantasy, and it doesn't matter how good Pathfinder is. They just don't like the aesthetic. They can't get into the mentality of it. They don't like role-playing that kind of thing, and they're just never going to like the game, and that's completely okay. It's like pineapple on pizza, you know? If you don't like savory and sweet added together, you're just not going to like it no matter what.
Can't stand it. It repulses me.
I also am
yeah.
not a big sweet and savory kind of person.
Yeah, literally, I think same, because Dead Phoenix, because yeah, I love XP. I think it's more fun, but on the other hand, if I was DMing Milestone, I feel like I can do a lot more than I could XP, because I don't want to have to deal with the math of XP gain, and then on the other hand, lazy, and I don't want to do it in the first place.
Fair. Also, before we end, I want for my players who are here in the chat as well, and people in the future, where I got my XP system that we use like all the time. I used to play with this guy who was my first GM, and we were playing Deadlands. And at the end of sessions in Deadlands, you get poker chips based on, doing certain things. He also gave special awards for accomplishing certain things, and also you gain extra chips for if your disadvantages actually hindered you in a game or not. I really enjoyed that. I felt that was good. In Deadlands especially, the poker chip system felt really fun because you could use them and buy XP for certain skills, or you could use them for re-rolling as well. So you could gamble with them. And sometimes you needed to not die. So, and then I moved up to eventually Animal Beyond Fantasy, and Animal Beyond Fantasy has an XP table that tells you like how much XP you get. And we used Animal for so long that I just kind of combined the two kind of concepts of giving XP for certain things, like XP based on essentially what the session had planned, and then XP based on accomplishments the players made. And that's what we got today. And I feel it's a system that works really, really well. It rewards not only progressing the story, but doing certain things as characters. And then at the very end, I don't even know when I picked this up, honestly. I legitimately don't know when this started going on. But we also do a player nomination and kudos section where players can nominate each other for player awards, or at least give them a pat on the back for what they do. And I feel that in particular has probably been one of the best changes we've ever done to XP, because if you want to get more XP from the system, if you're a greedy player, you're going to need to give kudos and such to other players to motivate them to give you XP and kudos.
Yeah, the peak manipulation strategy of come break my system of being nice to your friends.
Yeah. Play together more, become better friends, then you can get all the XP you want.
I'm gonna min-max my friendship to get a little more XP.
Yep. Right?
Yeah.
So, and plus it feels good when someone else acknowledges fun stuff that happened in the session that you did.
It's nice when you like spend some time figuring something out, and then you have a scene and you can describe something really cool, and people are like, that was cool, and you're like, oh, they noticed. It feels good.
It does feel good. And so it's like XP, I think, is something that needs to be better gamified to make it more rewarding for players, because a lot of the times I agree with like a lot of what Dead Phoenix is saying here. Sometimes it just doesn't add to the experience. Like, what does getting so much experience from killing a bunch of goblins versus so much experience killing a dragon,
Yeah.
Like, does that reward, oh, we don't want to fight goblins, we want to fight dragons because they give better XP. So I guess the game is telling us to go fight harder and harder fights constantly, which just makes the game more stressful because you're constantly on the brink of death, And also just don't try to mess with anything lower than your level, because it becomes a worthless interaction. Like, I think that's bad. I don't like that. So instead, a system that's like, I like Pathfinder actually a lot, because a more powerful enemy is going to give you more XP, but it not so much that a bunch of little enemies couldn't give you similar XP, One dragon, or like a creature that is 3 levels above you, give you 120 XP. Creatures that are 3 levels below you, I think, give you 20 XP or 15 XP. I can't remember. So if you fight 8 or so of the little creatures, you get about the same XP. And those are just two wildly different encounters based on how they do it. You grant XP for invading encounters? Kind of. It depends. If the act of invading requires skill checks and actions by players, yes. If the act of evading an encounter is the players looked at the encounter and went the other way, no.
Yeah. That's why I like how it's done in Pathfinder, because I feel like it shouldn't be... Because XP is supposed to be, experience, like life experience that is growing. So the effort of going out of your way to avoid something deadly is honestly still pretty substantial than if you fought something deadly.
Yeah.
It's still using a lot of effort and knowledge. So it just makes sense. It's why I think XP is really cool. I think having it purely off of killing things, it just does make sense for the world. It's like how Brennan Lee Mulligan puts it. It's like, yeah, well, if that is the case, then every wizard college should be like, books? No, just there's a goblin camp at the bottom of that hill. Go fireball it for an hour.
Yeah.
It's like that's how it should be. Like, yeah, no, we don't learn here, don't read, you just kill shit. It doesn't make sense in the world.
Anyway, that's gonna be it for us today. We went a little bit over, but you know what? This is probably one of my favorite sessions we've had in a while. We talked about some interesting stuff coming up in the remaster, and also just general tabletop theory, which I'm always a big fan of. But
always
Alex,
good to discuss that.
Got anything you want to leave us off with today before we head out?
If you are here and you haven't already, I do Warhammer 40k content. I think it's pretty fun. Go sub Blue Boy on YouTube. It's pretty easy to find. Either just search it on YouTube or you can find it through Champ's channel. Put out a video on Tyranids if you like big hive mind bug enemies in games and stuff. They're pretty neat. Soon we're going to be getting a video on the best Primarch in Warhammer 40k, so stay tuned. I'm very excited for that. I'm going to, after this stream, just start writing on it because I'm in a productive state. And other than that, also, soon here, there will be an uptick in quality because I'm finally upgrading my setup a little bit. So, yeah, stay tuned to my channel for Warhammer content if that's what you like.
All right. And I haven't done this in a while, but if you're new to the channel or if you haven't seen anything that we do here, we have TableTalk every week, 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So there are not many channels on YouTube where you can actually go and chat with the individuals in like a live stream form, especially in the tabletop community. So besides, I guess, Roll for Combat, of course.
Yeah.
So come check us out, subscribe, follow, do all that fun stuff. We also stream on Twitch, so you can watch us on your platform of choice. And as well, I got more fun stuff coming up. I got another short coming out, and I will start increasing productivity on shorts when I get the style kind of down, because they did take a bit of time, but I feel like if I get it down to a science, I can make a short in like an hour, which
it's like anything. Once you learn how to do it, because every time you mention it, I'm like, I gotta start. I gotta do it.
And I found a type of short that really, really works too. So
yeah.
Which you can actually find my shorts on TikTok under Bad Luck Gamer as well. So
yeah.
As
well.
well.
I popped up my TikTok. That's how I found out you made it.
Fair. Also, Rage of Elements stuff is coming in the next few weeks, hopefully. So stay tuned on the channel. I'll be doing the archetype stuff as soon as I'm given permission to do so, which is going to be really, really cool. You get to see a lot of the cool archetypes coming out in the new book a little bit before it releases, which is going to be a lot of fun. As well, I have been working on some collab content that will be hopefully coming out next month sometime. I'm not the one in charge of it, but we just finished recording something yesterday, so hopefully that comes out relatively soon. I'm very excited to share that with all of you. And as well, shout us out on Twitter or whatever platforms. I just today was talking with someone who's like, I can't find any good Pathfinder 2E content creators. And I'm like, hey, I'm doing stuff. And he's like, oh man, you've been doing great stuff. So there's people searching all the time, and the algorithm isn't great when you have sub 10k subs. So, any help we can get will make the channel better. But that's going to be it for us for now. Thank you all so much for watching. And I guess I'll say goodnight.
Good night.
Good night.